Shalom, we continue with Psalm 63, a psalm of David when he was in the wilderness of Judah. God, you are my God. I search for you. My soul thirsts for you. My body yearns for you as a parched and thirsty land that has no water. I shall behold you in the sanctuary and see your might and glory. Truly your faithfulness is better than life. My lips declare your praise. I bless you all my life. I lift up my hands, invoking your name. I am sated as with a rich feast. I sing praises with joyful lips. When I call you to mind upon my bed, when I think of you in the watches of the night, for you are my help, and in the shadow of your wings I shout for joy. My soul is attached to you. Your right hand supports me. May those who seek to destroy my life enter the depths of the earth. May they be gutted by the sword. May they be prey to jackals. But the king shall rejoice in God. All who swear by him shall exult when the mouth of liars is stopped. You know, I kind of wish that this psalm ended at verse 9 rather than continuing on with the last three verses, because the first 9 verses are an expression of spiritual joy and ecstasy, and the last 3 verses seem to be a real downer, shifting from verse 9, my soul is attached to you, your right hand supports me, to the stark change in mood, the shift represented by verse 10, may those who seek to destroy my life enter the depths of the earth. We move from the height of spiritual power and strength and beauty to the depths of feelings of anger and revenge against enemies. And what is that all about? And why did the psalmist have to conclude with those last 3 verses? Well, I'll get to that in just a couple of moments, but I want to talk for a minute here about the first part, which may be difficult for many of us to relate to if we have not experienced that kind of moment of spiritual connection with God. Part of the clue here, I think, is the contradiction or the apparent contradiction between the psalmist saying that his soul thirsts for God and his body yearns for God like a parched and thirsty land that has no water. And then just a few verses later, he declares that he is sated as with a rich feast. He sings praises with joyful lips. How can it be that in the one moment his soul thirsts for God and in the very next moment he feels sated as with a rich feast? Is it simply that the thirst and the yearning leads to a feeling of satisfaction? Is that first we have the yearning, and then the yearning eventually leads to a granting, essentially, of his wish to connect with God. That God, responding to the psalmist's thirst, spiritual thirst, responds by moving in and fulfilling the psalmist's wish and granting the psalmist a full taste of God's presence. That may be, that is possible, but it is also possible that the thirst and the satisfaction, the satiation, that both of those are existing simultaneously, which would be apparently a logical contradiction. However, when you think about religions, for instance, Buddhism as an example, that has and presents one-line phrases that contain inner contradictions, such as consider the sound of one hand clapping, That, of course, is illogical, but it is a phrase that is used by some people who practice Buddhism to achieve a higher level of spiritual knowledge and understanding and awareness. That is to say that whether it's in the Eastern religions or even in the Western religions like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, there are times when we know that rational thinking can only get us so far. And that at a certain point, when we reach the limits of rational thinking, which actually may be symbolized by a contradiction like this, a thirsty soul and a soul that has been quenched at the same moment, thirst and quenching existing at the same moment. When we consider that more deeply, we realize that it's not all about thinking, it's not all about rationality, it is about the limits of where our mind can take us and the infinite direction that our spiritual growth can take us. The spiritual connection with God, the feeling that the psalmist expresses that he exists on the heights of a holy communion with God, that has no limits. Hard to imagine getting there. But I think that many of us have had moments where we feel and experience something on a level that goes way beyond rational mind and thinking and goes into the deepest, innermost feelings of our heart, connecting with love and with joy for something that we cannot even express in words. But then what do we do with that shift? May those who seek to destroy my life enter the depths of the earth. I think one of the messages that I gain from this is that the psalmist is reminding us that we can stick for a while, perhaps, in a moment of holiness and deep connection with God, but it is hard to sustain that in day-to-day life. And eventually, our creature and human foibles catch up with us. And we remember that there are people out there whom we may resent, whom we may fear, that there are people who are setting out for our destruction. And we may even, after we remember that particular fact, catch ourselves wishing for revenge, wishing harm against them at the same time. And that is only human. We are not God. We can try to be godly and follow in God's ways, but we are only human. And there too, once we understand that fact and reach that awareness of our human shortcomings, through that awareness, we can continue to work towards sustaining a deeper and stronger relationship with our faith and with God. And so we can't perhaps exist and spend all of our moments on that spiritual mountain. We may not be able to do that. Every so often, we are taken down a few pegs by our humanity and by our human frailties. But understanding that and knowing that, we can continue to work towards building a deeper relationship with God and a deeper and more sustained ability to feel and practice love towards all our fellow human beings. Thank you.